Welcome to Keep On Pushing TV. I am your host. Yes, you have seen me once or twice before. It's Devon Harris once again. And you know what we do here, right? We share ideas and insights that are going to challenge you and inspire you to keep on pushing. And in the process, live your absolute best life, because we really do want that from you and of you and for you. So if that's something that you're interested in as well, I can assure you you're in the right place. So once again, welcome to Keep On Pushing TV. My guest today has so many accolades, man. I could spend half the program just talking about them. So here are the cliff notes. He is a best-selling author of One Red Thread and Fiercely Loyal: How High-Performing Companies Develop and Retain Top Talent. He's a #1 Fortune 500 podcast host, Entrepreneur Magazine contributor. He has been named one of Inc. magazine's top 100 leadership speakers to hire and as one of the top 30 global leadership gurus. So you can imagine he's a prolific speaker and has spoken in practically every major city in the world, sharing his wisdom to audiences, guiding us in how to recognize and nurture dragons, the top talents in our organizations. Despite his kind of stern demeanor, the dude is kind of humorous, man. And he's a master storyteller, I have to tell you, but in a very no BS kind of style, which is quite contagious, surprisingly enough. And so with that, I have to say I'm really proud to welcome the Dragonist himself, Mr. Dov Baron. Dov, welcome to Keep On Pushing, bro.
Thank you, Devon. It's a pleasure and honor to be here. What do you mean, stern exterior?
Look at that. Oh, come on, don't give me that smile. We know what that is. It's to lull us in so you can bite our heads off, as it were. But
thank you, sir.
Thanks, man. I mean, you have done a lot, Dov, and you continue to do a lot. And hopefully we'll see where the conversation goes. Hopefully we'll explore some of the stuff beyond the speaking and the writing. But people see you here now. Not quite the finished product, because I know you're still working on yourself. But people see you here at this stage and think, wow, he's had it made all his life. I am always interested in the journey, Dov. I know you were born in the UK, you lived in Australia and a whole bunch of other parts in the world. So please take us back a little bit and give us some insights into the early life of Dov, as it were.
Okay, thank you. If we go right back, I was born very young.
That's a surprise.
I know. Shock, right? I was born in Northern England, in a ghetto, in abject poverty, as you and I talked about when we were honored to have you as a guest on the show. So I was born in abject poverty in Northern England, surrounded by violence, addiction, crime, all those kinds of delicious things, and made a decision actually when I was 14 that I was going to leave that place. And at 21 I did, and I traveled the world to study with great spiritual teachers and masters around the world. And as you said, I spent some time in France and Italy. Then I was in East Coast Canada, then Asia and Indonesia, and then I lived in Australia for many years before I moved to Canada. I owned and ran businesses that I built from the ground up in 3 different continents, and have been speaking for 34 years. But the journey really began for me in a very different path than the one I'm on. I mean, I would never have said I'm going to be a leadership expert. That was not even in my vocabulary. All I knew was I was fascinated with why people did what they did, why they sabotage themselves, and how to find out how other people did something different that made them successful. And I didn't understand what that meant, but of course it was a deep dive into the psychology of excellence and metaphysical understanding, quantum physics and neurosciences. So the journey has been a little bit weaving and turning along the road.
Well, that's the thing, though. I mean, you said the journey has been weaving, but we know that the journey is usually rather circuitous, never a straight line. But
Of course not.
I'm kind of curious, Dov, because yep, you're born in the rough side of town, and I can definitely relate to that,
Hmm.
and I can relate to you at 14 deciding, hey, I'm out of here, and I kind of made a similar decision around about that
Hmm.
age. Um, I don't know if I've ever found an answer for myself. Maybe I need to dig a little deeper. Um, but what was it? What do you think in your head, in your mind, your heart, your soul that triggered that decision that set you apart from your peers?
Well, I know specifically what it was. I know the two catalytic factors. One was when I was 10 years old, I walked into the living room and I saw my mom crying, and I didn't know why she was crying. And being the eldest son, I was concerned. And my mom was brushing away tears from her face and pushing her glasses out of the way. And I said, "Mom, why are you crying?" And she pointed to the TV and she said, "He's dead." Who is? And I looked at the screen and didn't recognize the person on the screen. He wasn't a TV star, wasn't a movie star, wasn't a soccer player. So I had no idea who he was. And then I listened and he said, "I have a dream that one day." And I was like, who is this man? And I became fascinated with the idea that a Black Christian minister, from the perspective of as a child, on the other side of the world, meaning in America,
Mm-hmm.
could talk in a way that would impact the heart and soul of my mother, who was a poor Jewish woman living in England, in northern England, was mind-blowing to me. And I began to study Martin Luther King and began to study Gandhi because of that as a kid. So that was the catalyst initially. So when other kids were watching cartoons and doing shit like that, I was not interested. I was watching documentaries and I was fascinated with philosophy and those kinds of things as a kid. And I was an artist and I painted. My art was in galleries by the time I was 11. So I was very different in that way. By the time I was 14, on that path of being interested in things other people weren't interested in, it was a beautiful sunny day. And my mom walked into the living room and she says, "Why aren't you outside?" Because she's supposed to be outside.
Right.
And I said, "Because I'm watching this." And she said, "What is it?" And I said, "It's a documentary." She said, "What is it about?" I said, "I don't know." She goes, "What do you mean you don't know? There's no speaking." And it was this beautiful documentary that was filmed over a period of 10 years, squished into an hour. And it was this journey of this girl who was traveling from the East Coast to the West Coast. And as she was traveling, it was made to look like 4 seasons, but it was actually over 10 years. So in this journey, you'd see her meet a man, and then they have a child, and then this child becomes a young kid with her. And my mom said, "Well, where is it?" And I said, "I don't know where it is." I said, "I think it's America." And she says, "Oh," and I said, "Yeah, I'm going to go live there
Mm.
at 14." And she's like, "Okay, yeah,
Yeah, whatever.
woo,
You should go outside and play.
take your pills now, son. Have a little lie down." And so I made the decision to leave at that time. And I was surrounded by friends my entire adolescence who were all saying, "Yeah, this place sucks. We got to get out of here." We're all saying the same thing. In England, it's legal to drink at 18, which means you're in the pub at 15. And so we were in the pub and we'd all sit around and we're like, "It sucks. I'm going to get out." And I'd say, "Yes, I'm getting out." And they all were saying that, but I was doing it. And at 21, I turned up and said, "I'm done." And they're like, "Where are you going?" And I go, "I'm out of here." "You can't leave. We got Boddington's Bitter. We got the pub. You got your mates. You got Man United, Man City. You got fish and chips. You got your family." I'm like, "I'm done." And that was when I began to leave. And it was that understanding that we psychologically, human beings, are driven to fit in. We need our tribe.
Yeah.
But what I know is fitting in doesn't work. What I know is in order to fit in, I must repress and suppress parts of my being. I'm not willing to do that. I don't want to fit in. I want to belong. There's a difference. There's nothing to be pushed down in a belonging. There's plenty of room for me to spread my wings and breathe my fire and be the dragon that I am and help other people to find the fire within them. That was what drove me. And when I went back 4 years later, all the guys sat around the bar and they're all sitting around and they said, "There was always something different about you." And it was that drive. It was that commitment to have something bigger than my environment. And I know you had a very similar experience. That was one of the things we had in common.
Because, you know, it's great to go back, you know, to the old neighborhood and on one level, see people that you knew, that you grew up with. But it saddens me as well, because in the same number of years, same time period that I've, you know, traveled around the world as you have, they have traveled around the block. And
Yes.
you go, wow, yes, there was, you're right. Everybody said they wanted to get out, but not everybody meant it. Not everybody did what was necessary. And you know, you're right. They want to feel like they're part of a group and stay in that comfort zone. And as long as all of us are here, man, hey, why leave? We can just pretend that we want to leave and complain.
Well, they also want to keep you there, not because they're horrible people. So let me please understand this.
Right.
You know, very often the biggest anchor around your ankles is your own family, not because they don't love you, but because in their mind, they're keeping you safe by keeping you close.
Yep.
And if you leave, they have to question their reality.
Exactly.
That's the problem.
Exactly.
So that's why they discourage you. And when they discourage you, you need to take that as power, as force, as fuel to say, oh, they're just protecting their reality. I'm going to move forward.
And as proof positive that you should go. Because,
absolutely,
you know, the world is out there for you. So were you a sporty guy, Dov? Were you, you know, physically active? What was life like for you then?
So I wasn't that much as a little kid, although by the time I got to about 10, I got into, you know, I was born in the UK, so obviously I played soccer. I played cricket, and I played soccer. And as we call it,
soccer,
footy.
you mean real football, right?
Football, of course.
Right?
Football with your feet. Right? I always say to Americans, it's not football if you're not using your feet.
Exactly.
So, in case the audience is American, I say soccer. But yeah, I played a lot.
I'm teasing the audience, by the way.
I know, right? So I played a lot of soccer, and actually was pretty good. I played for JLB, the Jewish Lads Brigade.
Ooh.
It's hysterical, but I played for them, and it was pretty good. And then when I was about 18, I took up boxing and became a boxer, and then continued with that, boxing and running and all the things that went with that. Then I took up cycling, long distance cycling, and cycled a lot. And then at about 23, became a martial artist, studied Chole Fat, Wing Chun, as well as my boxing, and went on to do squash. And then, and as part of those, became a bodybuilder and stayed a bodybuilder, and you know, became a gym rat for the rest of my life, and, you know, got to some decent size. I know it's hard to guess, but I'm 5'8", going on 6'4".
Mm-hmm.
And
hey, dude, I used to be 7 foot tall, so you know.
Yeah, we all shrink in the wash. I just washed a lot, and got to about 215. So I was a pretty beefed bloke. But now I'm a bit older. I take better care of that.
No, you're just ordinary.
Yeah,
so
I'm just.
One of the things I know about life is that, you know, people tend to change. They know they need to change and they want to change, but they only tend to change once they've hit rock bottom. You literally and figuratively hit rock bottom. Yes. Talk to us about that experience and how that impacted your life.
Sure. In June 1990, I was about as successful as I'd ever been. And talking of sports, I was a full-blown adrenaline junkie at that time. I used to do all kinds of crazy adrenaline sports. And on this particular time in June 1990, I'd come back from a speaking tour. I was doing really well. And a friend and I went to a place called Brandywine Falls in British Columbia, Canada, where the Winter Olympics were held in 2010, up by there. And we're looking over at this gorgeous glacial waterfall that, you know, it comes off the top of the glacier and twists and turns and comes down the mountain and then plunges out to the edge of a cliff for 200 feet. It is spectacular.
Mm-hmm.
And from the upper levels, you can look at it and watch it. And I was like, let's see if we can climb down, hike down. And my mate's like, yeah, because he's also an adrenaline junkie. We get down the bottom, and we're down the bottom, and we can see, now we're at eye level with the bottom of the waterfalls, and we can see the spray hitting. And I said, let's see if we can get behind the waterfall. And he's like, that's crazy. We weren't dressed for it.
Right.
You got to climb across these slippery rocks and all the rest of it. And there's a 70-mile-an-hour wind coming at you, washing over you, pushing you back. And we did it. We got behind the waterfall in this little gap. I mean, if you put your hand out, the force of the waterfall would have taken my arm off. It's incredibly invigorating, and it's filled with negative ions, which is very positive for the body. And when I came out on the other side, I felt like Superman. I felt like I had a big S tattooed on my chest, and I felt like I could do anything. So I said to my buddy, let's not hike back. And he goes, well, what are we going to do? Take the elevator? It was a joke, of course, there was none. I said, no, let's free climb. Now, if you don't know what free climbing is, mountain climbing, people think is a bit crazy, but it's not. You have gear, you have hooks, you have safety lines, etc. Free climbing is a little more insane because you don't have any of those things, but you have the right shoes, and you have chalk, and you're dry. We, on the other hand, were soaking wet in the wrong shoes with no chalk, and we decided to climb. And at about 120 feet, I reached for a rock, and that rock dislodged a bigger rock that came down and bam, hit me in the face and sent me hurtling down to the bottom at maximum velocity from about 120 feet, 12 stories. And I landed on my face and got smashed to pieces. I could tell you the gory details. You don't need to know them. But like I said, there was 12 reconstructive surgeries. And it definitely brought my life to a halt as I'd known it at that time.
So I'm just thinking, you're a successful speaker, you're fit and strong, and living on adrenaline, and so that's your identity, man.
Absolutely.
So the doctors are reconstructing your face. How do you reconstruct your life from that?
That's a great question, Devon. So the truth of the matter is that the reconstruction of my face and my body was very painful, but far less painful than the reconstruction of my emotional, mental, spiritual state of being and my career. And when people would ask me, how you doing? I would always respond with, I'm great. I'm coming back. I'm a ghetto kid. I'm a boxer. I'm a martial artist. I'm a leader. You're not going to hold me down. And so I was in complete, total denial. I mean, while my jaw's wired closed and people saying, how you doing? I'm going, I'm great. Obviously wasn't great. I was in a very dark depression, and my mates would take me out for nights out, and I would be like, I'd be miserable the entire night. And then one night I went out with my mates, and I actually laughed, and I thought, okay, maybe I am coming back. Maybe, okay, I'm going to be okay. And as I opened the back door to come in, the light from outside shone into the kitchen, and across the floor, I could see festooned garbage everywhere. There was meat packages, empty cans, kitty litter. It was all everywhere, and it smelled horrible. And I knew exactly who was the culprit. And I walked in, and I went from being in, for the first time in well over a year, feeling joy. I went from joy to rage in an instant. And I went looking for the culprit, and I wanted to kill. No uncertain terms. I wanted to kill the culprit. And I walked in and found the culprit on the living room couch, curled up and all comfy, and I lifted my hand, but I'm not a violent person. So as I lifted my hand, halfway down, I stopped and went, this is not me. And I put my hands down and scooped up my cat, who was cold and dead, in my arms. And I fell to my knees and began to weep and weep and weep. And I realized after just a couple of minutes, because I actually didn't like this cat, it wasn't even my cat, but I realized I wasn't crying for the cat. I was out of denial, and I had to face that the life I'd had was dead. That was over. And that there is no back.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, there is no back. And that's what I realized in that moment. Back doesn't exist. Nothing in nature moves backwards. Everything moves forwards. So I realized in that moment I had several choices. One was I could keep trying to go back, which doesn't exist. The more seductive choice was to stay where I was. I was a victim. it wasn't my fault. God, destiny, whatever you want to call it, had handed me a crappy hand. And so, it's not my fault. And that was very seductive because it didn't mean I had to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a third option. And the third option was to find that, what I call that dragon fire within me, to find the real reason I'm here. What is the real purpose? I was successful. And if you'd have asked me, was I on purpose before, I would have said yes, but something was missing. And I knew that. And many of the leaders that I work with who are athletes and entertainers and CEOs and entrepreneurs and very successful people, they know it. They get to a place of enormous success and they know something is missing and they don't know what it is. And that's what I was at. And so I decided that was my journey. And I began that journey entering into, as Joseph Campbell said, the dark cave, going into that place that we fear to enter because that's where the treasure is. And that was the beginning.
Indeed, indeed. So you're talking about finally coming around to taking personal responsibility for your life. And so many of us, we find ourselves in situations like you fall literally 120 feet, hit the rocks, and you could have sat there as you did for a while anyway and say, you know what, this is a hand that God gave me. I have to live with it. Mm-hmm. But that gives you no power.
Right.
To move forward, as you say. So, I'm kind of looking at you and I'm smiling to myself, because, I introduced you as a guy with a kind of stern exterior, but, you're quite charming, quite.
He says that like I don't really want to say this.
Right, exactly. You're gregarious. You're gregarious. Have you always been that way?
It's interesting because I think my wife still has trouble believing it. But as a child, I was extremely shy, very insecure. And for the first, up until probably till my fall, I overcame that shyness and insecurity with a lot of ego and bravado, which is very different than real purpose and power. So it was always about being right and being something other than, it was always an externally referenced thing. In other words, I had great self-esteem, but terrible self-worth. And people don't understand the distinction between those two things. They think they're interchangeable. They're not. Self-esteem is external. It's what people tell you about you. Oh, you're great. You're amazing. You're fantastic. Wow, you did this. Wow, you went to the Olympics. Oh my God, that's so amazing. But you can still feel like crap on the inside. Mm-hmm. That's self-worth. And so that journey that I had to go on was on a journey of self-worth to discover what is my intrinsic, unchangeable value, what has got nothing to do with what the world says about me. And so as a kid, I was at horrible self-worth. I also had horrible self-esteem. I built the self-esteem. I knew how to manipulate that and get that, but that doesn't sustain us. That's when we end up with that empty life. So I was a very different kid, but I was always committed, enormously committed to learning, like from a little tiny boy, deeply, deeply curious.
So, you talk a lot about being authentic, and it's something I so believe in. I think that, being authentic is the most powerful we can be. How does that jive, being authentic with, being an insecure introvert who projects this aura of somebody who has it all?
Thank you for asking that, Devon, because it's an important question, because I have been talking about being authentic for 20 plus years, and I don't even use the word anymore. And the reason I don't use the word anymore is because it's become part of the lexicon of language that doesn't mean a damn thing. This is an authentic water container. This is an authentic phone. What the heck does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. So people say, well, yeah, I know I'm an asshole, but at least I'm authentic about it. No, you're an asshole who hasn't developed themselves, who hasn't had the courage to look inward. So I actually don't like that word authentic anymore because it's been shoved around. What we need to do is to self-inquire. We need to have self-knowledge. We need to be willing to look into the dark shadows We need to find out why we're really here on the planet, because it isn't why you think it is. It's something far deeper at a soulful level. And it's the expression of that. So, you know, I was authentically insecure. I was authentically driven by my ego.
Yeah.
Now I am authentically driven by my dragon fire, by my purpose, by the thing that I'm here to serve in the world, by lifting others to be in their magnificence. Yes, I'm authentically driven by that.
So, Mr. Dragonist, what is dragon fire? How do you define that?
Thank you. So, may I explain what a dragon is for a moment first, so that people understand it? Because I think
Jamaica, you think it's something you drink.
Yeah, no, it's not that. That might be a drinking, I don't know, in the Caribbean somewhere, but not here. When we think about, the reason I love this metaphor is when we think about dragons, we imagine this enormous beast of an animal. It's so powerful. It is, you know, when it enters the room, there is something rather significant about it. It is,
it catches your attention.
It catches your attention. You know, when you picture this creature, you don't think about a little matchbox burping up a bit of fire. No, a dragon is big. It arrives on the scene. It's a big deal. When you approach a dragon, people may experience fear, but they also experience awe and respect. A dragon has presence. So what I want to say to that is this, is that when we look at the mythology of dragons, you know, we see this massively majestic beast with wings and breathes fire and impenetrable scales. But if you look at the mythology of it, dragons always protect what is most valuable. So if you think about Lord of the Rings, it was sat on gold. Well, that's a metaphor. It's not a truth. It's not about money. It's about what's most valuable. Dragons protect what is most valuable. And, you know, they seem impenetrable because they have these scales. But what you look at the literature, and by the way, this is really interesting. Dragons are found in every culture. Every culture has history with dragons. There's something in it, whether it's from Asia to Africa to the Vikings. There was always these dragons. And so they've got these hard scales and they're impenetrable. But here at the front, right at the very front, is this translucent, soft scale where the heart is. The only way to kill a dragon is through that. So a dragon leads with its most vulnerable and its fire. That's what it means to be a dragon. It means you protect what is most valuable. You are majestic, you are powerful, you are on purpose with what it is you're doing, but you lead with your fire and with your heart, with your vulnerability, and you breathe fire onto the lies, but you must first breathe the fire onto the lies that you've told yourself about your being small. Your dragon fire is not your passion. Your passion is nothing. Your passion is transitory. The things you're passionate about in your teens, in your 20s, that changes by the time you're 40. So your passion is transitory, but your dragon fire is not. It is an eternal fire that burns within you, and it is why you're here on the planet. And until you can turn and face that, which means you have to face your own darkness to discover it, because it's always hidden behind your darkness and your pain, the places you don't want to look. But when you get in touch with that, you have fuel to change the world.
Indeed. So if you could define leadership for me as you see it, and talk to me about who a dragon leader is.
Thank you. So leadership in its normal context is a title. You're the CEO, you're the boss, you're the manager, you're some kind of title. But you know as well as I do, Devon, that's not a leader, that's a title. I believe with every fiber of my being that we all have a minimum requirement to lead ourselves, and we need to do that. But leading yourself means that you are a leader by example, and that is what leadership is. Leadership is influence. Leadership is impact. So when you look at that, you look around, you say, okay, do I have kids? Yes. Then you're a leader. because you are influencing and impacting your children. Are you a teacher? Yes. Then you're a leader. You're influencing and impacting. Are you, are you the person who has a lot of influence around your peers, your group, your church, your family? Yes. Then you're a leader. You don't need a title. You need to claim the title of leader for yourself. And so that's what leadership is in its rawest form. And then it's about having that impact and influence to make the world a better place, to lift it up, to lift up those who are maybe not in your position, who can, maybe you're lifting up people who are more powerful than you, who have the power and the influence to lift others. Maybe you're lifting up people who are smaller than you, or who are in some ways disenfranchised in a way. I don't know if you saw recently that I did a video about what was going on in the world and with the racial tension in the United States. And I said, it's up to us. It's up to white guys like me. We have to end racism. It's not for black people to change that. They didn't create the system. Colored people didn't create the system. It's we have to lift up everybody, not because we are, we've got this, we're better than you, but because we're not better than you, because the whole thing is a freaking lie. And we have a moral responsibility to lift up those who are segregated by finances, by melanin. What a stupid thing, right? By finances, because you weren't given opportunities, by where you were born. It's ridiculous. So being a leader means you take on a cause and you fight for that cause. And money and power are causes that belong in a different world. They don't belong here anymore. We have to fight for causes. Let us feed those who are hungry. Let us clothe those who are disheveled. Let us nurture those who are feeling unloved, and let us connect with those who are lonely. Let us take the world and lift it. That is what leadership is. And you can only do that with the dragon fire within you, because you see something that is worth fighting for, that is more important than your own status, your own label of leader.
Indeed, indeed. You use the term self-leadership just now, and you spoke about the fact that, from the time you were 14, you had embarked on a journey of learning and growth. Speak to me, or speak to us, the audience, about the importance of the commitment to personal growth as it relates to personal leadership, the term I like to use, or self-leadership.
Yeah. I think it's, in my mind at least, it is the most important part of leadership is self-knowledge. How can you lead another when you don't know yourself? And people will say, well, I know me. Do you? Do you really know you? So one of the questions, and I'm going to give this now as a skill and a tool. Is that okay for people?
Sure.
Okay. So let me ask you this question. You don't have to answer it, but take a piece of paper and a pen and write this down. Ask this question: who am I? And if you answer that question, you're probably going to say your name. And I will say, no, that's your name. That's not even your name. It's a name you were given. You go, oh, okay, I see. Well, I'm white, or I'm some other color. No, that is a race. Oh, okay. Oh, I'm a Christian. No, that's a religion. Oh, I'm American. No, that's a nationality. Oh, okay. And you have to keep digging, because you have to find out who you are, because only when you ask those questions, it's getting to who you are is a journey that will take you, and should take you, your entire life. But what the journey is about is discovering who you're not. That's the key. So my clients will often say, I feel like I've learned so much from you, Dov, but I feel less, not more. And the answer is yes. We've pulled off all the layers of lies that you were plastered on. And you can only lead by tearing off another layer of the lies you've been told about yourself. We talk about breathing fire onto your own lies.
Exactly.
So that's why it is so important in self-leadership. As an Olympian, you can get in the best shape in the world and still fail miserably, because everything's got to go on between the 8 inches, 6 inches, depending on the size of your head, between your ears.
8.5, I think.
Right. right? So the size of your coconut will determine that. That is what determines whether you're going to succeed.
Yeah.
So it is that journey, and it's that commitment to doing that, and ongoingly. So one of the things, as when I work with athletes, I'll say, did you strive for gold? Yes. What did you do? What was your daily commitments? And they, this is better than 99.9% of people. The commitment's insane. The commitment to be an Olympian is insane. And I said, what if you were going for gold in your life? What if you were going for gold in everything you do? What if you were going for gold as being a dad or as being a mom? What if you were going for gold at being a son or a father? What if you were going for gold at being a leader? What if you were going for gold at lifting other people up? What would be your level of dedication to that? Olympians don't get up in the morning and go, yeah, I think I'll watch telly today. They don't do that. Right? They have a regime. They get up at a certain time. They eat certain things. They sleep for a certain amount of time. They train for a certain amount of time. And then they repeat the cycle over and over because there is a single-minded goal to go for gold. Go for gold at being the best human being you can be. Go for gold at discovering what your soul is on fire with and why you're here on the planet. Go for gold in everything you do.
So as we talk about that, really having that high level of commitment and working every single day to become the best you can be, as a leader, so we're talking about self-leadership and how, what happens on the inside of us obviously flows out and impacts everybody else. As a young Army officer in the training the land of your birth at the Royal Military Academy, Sandhurst, my first training and leadership, was taught command and control. Yeah. And I completely get that from certainly military doctrine and what is necessary to take an objective in the heat of battle, in the gore and the fear and just the horror of war, right? There has to be a tight amount of control. But even as a soldier, when I recognize that same level of intensity and control didn't work quite as well in the barracks, because they don't have that pressure. And it certainly doesn't work as well. I'm not saying it doesn't work. It doesn't work as well. I don't think it's effective to really build an amazing team. Is it ego, Dov, that's kind of jumping in the way of us, to use a word that you don't like, being authentic and
Sure.
being as effective as we could be?
So it's interesting. If I may ask you a question, Devon. What year were you at Sandhurst?
85.
85.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason I'm asking you is because I have many military friends, very high level. One of them is a general. Command and control doesn't exist anymore.
Mm-hmm.
The military have gotten rid of it. Isn't that fascinating? And the reason they've gotten rid of it, I mean, I spoke for the U.S. Air Force a couple of years ago, fully going in there with that mentality. This was before I knew a lot of the military leaders, and fully having, oh yeah, these guys are going to be command and control. They're all robots and they're just told what to think. I was blown away. I was so excited to speak at that event because they were free thinking and creative. And it was amazing because even the military, and actually in many ways, the military is leading the way in understanding that command and control does not work because it doesn't bond people. It turns people into robots. You bond people through an emotional connection who understand the mission. And because they understand the mission and they're bonded with each other around that mission, they will do what needs to be done. And they're more effective than command and control. Command and control is absolutely about ego. It's I'm better than you. I'm more powerful than you. I'm stronger than you. You will do as you're told. That's not how the military works anymore. That's certainly not how it works in business anymore. Now, are there people who are still doing that in the military? Of course there are. Are there people still doing that who are living in big white houses in Washington? Yes, of course they are. Is there people doing that in different?
There's a big White House in Washington?
I've heard. I've heard. I'm not saying I know, but I've heard. So, you know, there are people still doing it.
Yeah.
These are the dinosaurs. These are the dinosaurs that will be wiped out by the comet. And the comet is the millennials and the Gen Zs who are coming, who will have nothing to do with that. They don't want it. They're not interested in it. And they will not comply. And as a result, they are marching in the streets today and saying no more. And that is beautiful, and it is powerful, and it is important. It is not about command and control. It is not about ego. It is about bonding. It is not about fitting in. It is about belonging and equalizing all of us and lifting everyone up to their greater good.
So I was going to ask this later, but you know, since we're on this point, it's not about command and control, and I agree. It's ego gets in the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you just have to kind of scan around the world, though, and you see these, I call them strong men leaders. Not strong leaders, strong men leaders, who still have a fiercely, what I would describe as a fiercely loyal following.
They do.
You know, and you're talking about, you know, creating fierce loyalty through collaboration.
Yes.
How does that jive, though? I guess the question I should ask you is, in your opinion, what is the problem with human beings? Because we are all leaders in our own right. We all understand this, that it feels better to collaborate versus to have a guy or girl dominating you and bullshitting you. Why do we fall for it?
Well, so now we're going to go back to psychology so people understand. Again, human beings are driven to find their tribe. And the interesting thing, now we're going to get a little psychological and political. As you know, I study both. So here's the thing. We need our tribe, so we want to belong, we want to fit in. That's one side of it. The other side of it is that we have the extreme left, which are really driven by what we call a victim mentality, meaning everything's offensive and you've got to be careful of every word, and the PC police will get you, right? Just stupid, stupid. It just doesn't work. And you know, if you spent time in the UK, when I was a kid in the UK, I had friends who were every color and every nation, everything. And we used racial terms for each other without any racism, without any intent to offend. And I didn't mind being called those names, and neither did my mates, because we all loved each other. Right. We didn't care. But now the PC police have said, oh, if you say that word, whatever the word is, then, you know, you victimize somebody. Well, hold on a second. For me to victimize somebody, they have to own that they're a victim, which means they're powerless. When you indoctrinate people with powerlessness, you create a cycle. So the cycle is, so you see, you've got these extreme left PC police, and on the right, you've got the Bolsonaros, you've got the Trumps, you've got these strongmen leaders. And some people say, well, these are polar opposite. No, they're not. They are part of the same circle. They're just the other side of that circle. Heads and tails are the same coin. So what it is if you indoctrinate a psychology of victim, then I need a hero to save me. So all these victimized people who are saying, oh, well, we need somebody to save us. So somebody steps up and says, I'm the only one who can solve this problem. They go, oh, well, we're victims and we're powerless, and all those people are trying to take it away from us. So we need you to save us, Donald. We need you to save us, whoever it is. You know, it's happening in the Philippines. It's happening in Hungary, as well as in China and Russia and countries that people don't even realize. The Philippines is insane with it. So it's this victim mentality that feeds into it. So this is why we have to get rid of the victim mentality. This is why I'm anti-PC, because we have to empower people to say, hey, dude, you just said that to me. What was your intent? No, that's terrible, and you should go to mental police for that. No, hold on a second. What was your intent? Let me be curious. You just called me a tight Jew. All right, tell me about that. I was Jewish by birth, but yeah, tell me about that. Okay. Because I'm actually not offended. I just want to know where you're coming from. Like, tell me, oh, it's just a term. No negative intent. Okay, fine. I don't have a problem.
Yeah. I agree with you that, at times we're hypersensitive, and you have to be wise enough to know when malintent was intended versus, let's call it an honest mistake or whatever. But you also used another word, or a couple other words earlier that I want to delve into. Mission.
Yeah.
As a soldier, I know that. Purpose, I also know that.
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference between the two?
So you've got vision, mission, purpose, which is nebulous. We can talk about that a little bit more. So the vision is where we want to go to. Mm-hmm. That's what we're foreseeing. The mission is how we get there. This is how we are going to get to there. The purpose, nebulously, we'll go to deeper with it, but the purpose is the why of what we're going there. So the vision is what we want. Then the mission is how we're going to get there, and the purpose is the why of when we get there. Now, the problem with that is most people don't understand purpose. They say, I found my purpose. And I go, okay. And then I ask them questions and they go, oh, I guess I don't know what it is. No. You see, because if you've read, and I would recommend you do, read Simon Sinek's Start With Why. It's a wonderful book, but I always say to the people I lead, have you read it? They say, yes. I go, what's the first word? They go, what? Start. And I go, right. It's not the end. It's the start. And so you've got to find the why of your why. That's turning into that dark cave. It's finding out what sets you on fire, looking at what's pissed you off for as long as you can remember, what it is that drives you to want to make a difference in the world. That's where you've got to look. That's where the fire is. And it's always in that dark place. Then you're on purpose. Mm-hmm. Then you say, okay, this is my purpose. And as a result, it automatically creates the vision. Now I need the methodology. How do we get there?
Yeah. And by the way, just for our audience, that is true whether we're talking about an organization, regardless of the size, but more importantly, it's true for each and every one of us as well, right? We have to have a vision. We have to figure out what the mission is and do what I call the hardest work, which is to be introspective, digging and getting into that dark place as you describe it. Mm-hmm. And so, being a leader, as you so aptly said earlier, is not about the title. It's really about a way of being, of influencing positively. Our impression of the guy or the gal who is out front, quote unquote, leading, mm-hmm. is that they know it all. They're strong and knowledgeable and capable. But
sure,
no, we are human beings, so we are imperfect.
Flawed. Yeah.
We have vulnerabilities. Mm-hmm. So talk to us about the importance then of, although you may be heading up this organization, to demonstrate that, you're not a know-it-all, as it were.
Thank you for asking that, because again, it's about busting another myth. I am honored to work with incredible leaders, and the leaders who are the best leaders are the ones who have a deep curiosity. I believe curiosity is the cure for almost every problem we have in our world. They understand that they don't know the answers and they're willing to be curious. Now, let me be clear here in saying this to everybody. People will say to me, oh yeah, it's really important to know what questions to ask. And I say, yeah, that's fine. That's great. But that's not it. And they go, what do you mean? Well, a question requires an answer, doesn't it? And they go, yeah. Mm-hmm. Curiosity doesn't. And they go, well, what does curiosity get? Curiosity is pursuing understanding. It's different than an answer. An answer is a yes, no, I like it, I don't like it. But curiosity is, let me find out more about that. Why is that? Mm-hmm. Why is that? As you know, I worked with a neo-Nazi. He and I spoke at the UN together, and people say, how could you possibly support a neo-Nazi as a Jew? They asked us that at the UN. And I said, because I didn't see a neo-Nazi. And he goes, well, didn't he tell you that? Yes. Well, what did you see? I saw somebody in front of me who is me. You were a neo-Nazi? No. I saw a highly intelligent, highly articulate young man who needed to find his way so that he could use those things for the power of good. And as a result, he started a group called an organization, a nonprofit organization called Life After Hate, and wrote a wonderful book called The Cure for Hate. I didn't see a neo-Nazi, because if I'd have seen a neo-Nazi, I would have asked questions. Why did you become a neo-Nazi? But instead, I became curious about the human being. And that curiosity didn't get me to the answer. It got me to understanding who he was at a deep level, as a result that he could now walk out into the world and make a massive difference and help people to stop going down that road, who influences people all over the world in a beautiful and magnificent way. So get curious. That's the key to it. And every great leader is deeply, deeply curious. They always want to know more. And if you want to look at a business level, look at Richard Branson. Richard Branson, his company is called Virgin. People don't know why. Virgin was called Virgin because when Branson started off, people didn't like him. And the reason they didn't like him is because if he took over a business, he fired everybody. And he was seen as a bit of a hard ass. Mm-hmm. But you know why he fired everybody? Because he wanted a virgin mind about the industry. He didn't want people saying, oh, you can't do this in the industry and you've got to do it that way. He's no. Let's get rid of everybody who's got a bias about it. Let's look at it because we don't know. That's why he went into industries he didn't know, so that he had a virgin mind and he could be deeply curious about it. Yeah. It's easy to look at the surface of anything and make a decision, but that's not who they are. Devon, you go, okay, well, here's a man who's from the Caribbean and he's of color and he's been an Olympian. Yeah. Is that who you are? Absolutely not. It's 3 pretty shallow layers of a man that has great depth and magnificence. If you're not curious, you stop by simply asking some questions. Oh, where are you from? I'm from the Caribbean. Oh, what race are you? I'm this race. Oh, what did you do? I was an Olympian. Okay, now I know everything about you. No, you don't know shit about me.
Yeah, absolutely. With the leaders that you've worked with and are working with, as we're talking about vulnerabilities.
Yes.
Have you found that some of them, despite their great accomplishments, kind of feel like the emperor without clothes? They are worried that people will realize that, you know what, I don't know as much as my title or my accomplishment may suggest, like this impostor syndrome is creeping in.
Sure. So what we know is the stats come back that about 74% of leaders suffer from impostor syndrome. The leaders I work with, of course, you know, they have felt that. When we finish working, they don't have any of that. Mm-hmm. It's gone. And the reason it's gone is because they know they're imposters. They don't think they're imposters. They know it. Yeah, right. And because it's pain. What's that?
You remove the doubt.
Well, yeah, exactly. I removed it out because when they, instead of looking at it from a negative place, they look at it from, oh, yeah, of course I'm an imposter. I have a title that the world or they think I should have the answers. If I'm running into that, then I'm an imposter. So instead of it, I embrace it. So I say, yeah, this is my title. It doesn't mean I know everything. Mm-hmm, and it is an imposter position to say that I know it. So I don't.
Right.
So it cancels it out. It takes away all the energy of it by simply saying, I don't know. What do you think?
Absolutely, because I think when you do that and you're showing that, hey, I don't know everything, I'm weak in this area, what you're doing is that you're empowering the other people on your team to step up and show their strengths as well. You know, so
great leaders are curious and they listen.
Yes, indeed. So I think we've kind of come full circle, because I kind of started out talking about the fact that, you know, you are not quite the finished product, because I know you're still working on yourself. And as we talk about leaders at every level of an organization and, you know, every walk of life, so to speak, if we are going to embrace this thing called self-leadership, personal leadership, doing what you've been doing since you were 14, you know, committing to personal growth, then the journey continues, doesn't it?
I think that the biggest trap, we have to understand that, particularly if we're in business, that we are a society that's goal oriented, right? You know, you're going for gold. Um, and I get that, and I understand that, and I respect that. But what you need to understand is that you need to set goals not for the purpose of reaching them, but you need to set goals for the purpose of who you will become in the pursuit of them.
Mm-hmm.
So if you stop having goals, then you stop pursuing the change and the evolution of yourself. So it's not about reaching the goal. I don't care about goals. Honestly, people ask me about this all the time. I'm like, I don't care about goals. I care about my evolution. I care about my growth. And so I set a goal because I want to be better. I want to up
Right.
my skills. I want to up my depth. So it is always about that. I honestly believe with every fiber of my being and with every great leader that I've worked with is the journey is far more important than the destination. It is the journey that carves us. And what I just want to have everybody think about for a moment, if you've ever seen a beautiful diamond, understand that it didn't look like that in the raw. In a raw, it looked like a rock. It had to be smashed, it had to be opened, and then it had to be pushed against the wheel of life. And it had to, all the crap had to be ground off it.
Mm-hmm.
You are a diamond, multifaceted, not single faceted, multifaceted. And you must be pushed up against the wheel of life, and it will grind you, and you will want to retreat, and you'll want to go away into your corner and feel sorry for yourself. I understand that, and it's okay to do it, but not for long. Then you come back, because it is not about the destination. It is about the journey, because the situations of life will either define you or they will refine you. So
Indeed,
stay curious
profound.
about your dragon fire.
And a profound and an appropriate way, I would say, my friend, to bring this conversation to a close. I just think there's so much that we can talk about. I think we may have to figure out a part 2 and maybe 3, Dov. But
Thank you.
yeah, you're absolutely right that life is either going to define you or refine you. It's really about the journey. And if you remain curious, if you figure a way to keep on pushing yourself in the pursuit of those goals, you have no choice but to grow. So, look, if someone wants some of that Dove, that Dragonist philosophy and mentorship, and find you because they want you to come speak to their group, perhaps virtually these days, how do they find you, Dove?
Thank you for asking, Devon. I appreciate it. You can find out more about me at dovbaron.com, so dovbaron.com. If you go there, you can find access to all of my things. As Devon knows, I have the #1 podcast in the world for Fortune 500 listeners called the Leadership and Loyalty Podcast. You can find out about that there. I have another podcast called Curiosity Bites. You can find out about that there. I also am on YouTube. There's over 700 videos there. You can find us there. Just look for Dov Baron, the Dragonist, on there. I'm also on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, wherever, just Google Dov Baron. There's only one, and there's a lot of stuff. But, one of the things you can do is this. And people think I'm insane for this, but I do this all the time. I read my mail. So you can write to me. And I would encourage that you do not only write to me, but write to Devon. I want you to tell us, because listen, information is worth the hole in the donut. Transformation takes place because of application. So I want you to write to me, dov@dovbaron.com. I want you to write to Devon. I want you to tell us what you got out of this, what you're going to do with it. And if I can be of service to you or in any way help you, just write to me there, and you'll find out more about me and all of my programs right at dovbaron.com. I want to thank you, Devon, for having me on. It's been an honor and a pleasure. And I want to say to you, as you listen, as you watch this, stay curious, my friend. Stay curious about the dragon fire that sleeps within you, that'll, when you awaken it, will burn away the lies, transform your life, and allow you to lift other people to great heights. Thank you.
An amazing way to end off. Thank you so much for really sharing your dragon fire with us and imparting your wisdom and keep on pushing. It's definitely in tune with this philosophy. So once again, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for watching. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you click on that subscribe button and hit that bell. You'll get a notification every time we post a new video. And don't forget, share it with your friends, man. They want to be inspired as well, right? So share it. Don't keep it. And before you go on to the next video, visit my website, www.devonharris.com. Keep on pushing.